Hello everyone! So back in May, Kayla Books and Lala released a video called I Paid a Professional to Choose Books for Me to Read. In that video, she paid the service called mytbr to give her 3 book recommendations and she read them, and back in May I was very interested in this. So I paid for the every 3-month subscription where they would give me 3 book recommendations every 3 books. It was $15 per 3 books. So I got it back in May and I completely forgot about it, and then I got an email in August saying, thank you so much for your payment, and I was like, I paid you? And I got 3 more recommendations, and in this video I'm going to be reading those books. So before I actually read the books, I want to show you a little bit about what the service is. This isn't sponsored by them at all. I have like 3,000 subscribers, but still, if you're interested in this, I want to show you how it works because I think it is a really cool service even if I don't love these books. So you go to their site and you basically make an account. I'm already like signed in. This is the status once you've already like done the things and paid. And basically you have this profile where they ask you a bunch of questions and you answer them. So at the top you can see like, what are your all-time favorite books? I gave a lot because I want it to be very comprehensive. Books you hated. Maybe one day I'll talk about my hatred of Ulysses, but today is not that day. It asks generally about like your favorite things, so TV shows, movies. Again, I gave a lot of things because I have a lot of favorites and just want it to be as comprehensive as possible. They ask if you want to be warned about any content. So for instance, I was like, yeah, just like let me know if there's self-harm, I'll read it, but just like let me know about that. They ask about deal breakers, so like I don't really love modern style poetry, like just the Rupi Kaur type stuff, and dystopian, I wasn't feeling that because it's 2020 and I didn't need that in my life right now. This question was not there when I filled this out, but apparently you can provide your preferred reading format, which is awesome. They ask for your favorite genres just so they know again like what to be looking for. And then they get into like the bigger questions about what you want out of these recommendations. So I gave very different answers for my first set, but for this set I was looking for something very specific. So I wanted just like very character heavy books. I had read some stuff that was just like boring old plot stuff, and I wanted some deep character heavy books, so I mentioned that here. Kind of similar to the first few questions, I asked what the last few books you really loved were, so I provided some here. Then since you're obviously like saying your preferences here, they want to know like, hey, do you want something that we know you love or something that might be a bit of a challenge for you or like branching out? So they ask that. And then yeah, they're really asking for like what you want, and for this time I wanted to read something very weird. I had just been thinking about weird things. Ooh, I mentioned I'm thinking of ending things, which I haven't actually read, and If on a Winter's Night a Traveler, which I am reading for Kayla's Buzzword-a-thon. So I haven't actually read those books, but I wanted something that was kind of going to challenge me and be a little bit odd, so I mentioned that here. Then they just asked for the general like, hey, give me more thoughts. I was saying I love writing style, because at the time I filled this out I was in the middle of The Beautiful and the Damned, which I am still. It's just called The Beautiful and Damned. Can we talk about that? You want it to be called The Beautiful and the Damned, but it's called The Beautiful and Damned, which means its own thing, but I trip myself up every time I say the stupid title. Okay. I was reading that at the time, and so I was just saying like, hey, I really, really love books that are written beautifully. Can you do that for me? Then there's your Goodreads profile, and that's that. You fill it out and you give them some time. And then they give you a recommendation letter. It'll like the email says your pigeon is ready, and you get the pigeon and it's your recommendations. It's formatted like a little letter, which makes it feel very personal because like there are people behind the service. It's not like Amazon or something where it's like, these are 5 books I like. Show me what other people have bought. This is like a human being who knows books, and they're giving you personalized book recommendations. So it says, hi Nicole, I hope you enjoyed your first round of recs. I didn't read those. If you are interested in this type of video, I can go back and read those other 3 because I had very different criteria, but I forgot to buy and read those. This time I focused on character-driven novels and 1 beautifully introspective memoir, all with knockout writing. Fingers crossed that you'll find a new favorite here. So let's go over the books I will be reading in this video. First, she gave me Weather by Jenny Offill, and here's what she said about it. Lizzie Benson's life is complicated. She doesn't love her job, she's longing for connection and meaning. She's overwhelmed by the responsibilities of caring for her child, brother, and parent. The political climate is a nightmare, and her marriage is on the rocks, or maybe this is just what midlife is like. In Offill's masterful hands, the ordinariness of Lizzie's concerns become extraordinary, inviting readers to contemplate the existential consequences of the fact that how we spend our days is, in fact, how we spend our lives. Simultaneously beautiful and deeply unsettling, this is one you won't soon forget. Next is a book I have seen talked about all over BookTube in both positive and negative ways, and that is Trust Exercise by Susan Choi, and here's what the person from mytbr said. Here's something a little weird, though not in the same vein as House of Leaves or its ilk. This novel about a group of high school theater students in the 1980s starts out as boundary pushing, and with every section, Choi reveals new information and perspective that cause the characters and us, the readers, to question not just if what we've been told is true, but whether we can ever actually know the truth of a story. It's a book that's just as much about writing and story as it is about the characters in the story, and it was met with mixed reviews. If you love it, you'll really love it. And finally, we have something I'm very excited for, How We Fight for Our Lives by Saeed Jones. And Rebecca said, in language that is somehow magically both lyrical and precise, Jones reflects on his childhood and coming of age as a black gay man in the American South. Jones's insight about himself and the ways his identity was shaped by and in opposition to his family, community, and culture makes this a standout in the already pretty remarkable category of memoirs by poets. While these books aren't exactly happy, I do wish you a happy reading. So those are the books. I will take you along on my reading and give you some reviews and let you know how I think Rebecca from mytbr did. Hello everyone and welcome to Wednesday. First off, if you can hear the yard work outside, someone is mowing the lawn, so I'm very sorry about that. We're just gonna have to live with that together. And second, I have finished Weather by Jenny Offill. I gave this 4 stars and I absolutely understand why this was chosen for me. This is like a slice of life book if ever I've read one. I mentioned that I wanted something that was very character driven, and this is an incredibly character driven novel in which from point A to point B, from the beginning to the end, not a lot happens except for personal growth. This is about a woman, Lizzie, who is a librarian, and she has a husband and a son and a struggling brother and a struggling mother, and she is currently tasked with answering email questions that people send in to her former mentor, who runs this podcast called Hell or High Water, which seems to be like a environmentalist podcast focused on the doom of the world. Ultimately though, it's kind of less about all the particularities and more just about the way this web informs Lizzie's psychology and her increasing doom. I believe this book takes place in 2016 because there's a point in which the election happens, and even though there's no names, the doom, like the collective doom, increases after that. The style is almost akin to something like a Bluette by Maggie Nelson, where it's in like 6 parts, but it's all like kind of chopped up in these small little sections where stream of consciousness is obviously the wrong word, but it's not just like a continuous narrative, like here's the scene of the day. You get these snippets, and then sometimes like a week will pass and sometimes a few seconds will pass. And again, it just kind of follows Lizzie through this experience of doom. I think this is brilliant and well done, but might not be everyone's cup of tea. I think it can be remarkably bleak. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the film First Reformed. That left me with a feeling of, how am I supposed to do anything ever again after I watched it? And I feel like this is touching on similar themes again, just like how do I go about the daily monotony of life when there's all this happening around me and I'm just supposed to like pick my son up from school. Backtracking a little bit and going back to the style, I do think that the way this is formatted really helps with the theme. I think that it's like calculatedly scatterbrained is almost how I'd put it, which is kind of almost how I think about Bluettes. Both that and this have this vibe that these things are stringed together randomly and that you could switch them around and then it wouldn't affect the narrative, but that's not true because they've been carefully constructed, and I think that's something this book does well, where it takes you through these little moments and you're like, wow, this time has passed, or we've gotten to this internal tangent, and it feels like it's just placed there randomly, but it all comes together into this collective that works very, very well. I feel like all art I consume right now goes into one of 2 categories. It either A, is escapism, or B, a reflection. Like I watched Children of Men last night and I was like, wow, ooh boy, we're here already. And this is exactly in that reflection camp. It just like feels like where we're all at right now. So if that's what you're looking for, I think Weather might be the book for you. The next thing I'm reading is my weird pick, which is Trust Exercises, which again, I have seen so many positive things for and so many negative things. That might actually be the book I'm most excited for, so we are gonna jump right on into that. I finished Trust Exercises, Nicole? I finished Trust Exercise 5 minutes ago. First off, like the point of this video, do I think this was a good recommendation for me? Absolutely yes. I listed Pale Fire as one of my favorite books in just like the list your favorite books thing, and this reminds me a lot of Pale Fire. I'll talk about why. In my attempt to give the least away possible, because if you read this I don't want you to know anything about it going into it, because I think that really heightened my experience. This is about this girl, Sarah, who's in this very rigorous theater program, and her relationship with this guy, David, in the program, as they figure out their relationship, and they're in this intensive theater program. That's the basics, but oh, there's so much more. I believe Rebecca said that this was as much about the process of writing as it was about the events that actually take place in the book, and that's true. The reason why this reminds me of Pale Fire, and again, this, with giving away as little as possible, there is an element of this book where something is written and it calls into question the truth, the fiction, and the reality of the events of the fictional book and of the happenstances of it being written. And I love things like that. What I love about both House of Leaves and Pale Fire is that it involves this written thing, but the author of the written thing is a fictionalized character within the thing, and I love this question of like, this blend of fiction and nonfiction and reality, and you don't totally know what's always going on, and that makes the book a puzzle, which I like. I'm trying to develop theories about what I like about books. For so much of college, I read all these classics that I knew, like, oh, I like good writing style, and I know I like these things, but as I'm reading more, especially for this channel, I'm like, okay, what do I actually like in books? And something I think I value in both books and all art is just like honesty. I don't really care about what story you're trying to tell me as long as you are being honest in the storytelling, as long as this feels like this is something that has a grounding in a human emotion and experience. But at the same time, where this book I think sometimes lacked in the human experience is where it revealed itself to be a puzzle. I think I love books that are puzzles. When I was younger, like, my favorite genre of book was like the Mysterious Benedict Society, or all those books where like, hey, are you a smart kid and do you want to like puzzle solve with all these other smart kids? This book is for you. And I think there's like a translation from that like 10-year-old mindset to where I am now, where I want to read things where I think the author is challenging me. I think people probably don't like this because it gives you no answers. The ending, the last, what, 20 pages, I was like, where are we? And why are we? And I'm not sure I loved the ending, let's put it out there. I think actually that might have been the weakest part of the book, but also I get it. One of the big threads in this book is sexual violence and power, and how power interacts with sexuality. And I think that the ending wraps that up very nicely, but I will admit it's not the thing that like really kept me engaged. The thing that obviously kept me engaged was this play with fiction and reality. So I appreciated that it ended with like a strong statement about one of its themes. It just wasn't the theme that I found the most compelling. Also, I was a theater kid. I like got to school at 7 o'clock, and depending on the day, I left school at either like 7 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night. I seriously think the longest I was ever at my high school was until about 11:30 on a night that was like a really long tech night, and I was like the treasurer at the time, and so someone had to stay to make sure everyone else went home, so I was there from 7 in the morning till 11:30. What is that? That's 12 plus 4.5. That's 16.5 hours. So the element of this book, they're like, hey, this is what it's like to be in a very rigorous theater program, that did in fact resonate with me. And there's something about those programs that is little spoken about, which is the success of them is predicated on the students' belief that the theater program is the only thing that matters. Like, why was I at school for so many hours every day? It's because I truly believed that my well-being and my purpose was wrapped up in being the treasurer and being on tech crew, and if I get this set built, at least everything's okay, because this is a thing that's larger than me. And there's a way that I think this book almost like whiplashes the experience, the movie, like how J.K. Simmons isn't actually like how most jazz band directors are. That's just like the absolute pinnacle of assholery. For instance, my theater director Sal is an absolutely wonderful person, and while he was invested in my emotions and my life, I don't think he was at the extent that Mr. Kingsley is depicted in this book. But I get what Susan Choi is trying to do. She's trying to reveal how these things, like theater is something that begets emotion. like, to be an actor or to be a part of something, you have to be in tune with your emotions. And I think she's interested in what happens when you take that to the extreme and you allow yourself to be vulnerable when you're 14 years old, and like, what emotions do you have to tap into so your emotions all feel heightened and extreme, and that's something that I can relate to. Okay, that's all I have to say. I'm gonna read How We Fight for Our Lives, and if everything goes well, this video will be up on Sunday. Woohoo! I've lost my mind. You're witnessing a woman who is losing her mind. Do you ever get in a reading slump so hard that you literally read one book in an entire month? Because that is what happened to me. I started reading How We Fight for Our Lives by Saeed Jones in September, and it is November 1st now, and we can finally talk about it. I'm not someone who usually reads a lot of nonfiction or memoirs. I feel like I kind of go into reading for that escapism vibe, even if it's not like a fantasy or sci-fi. I feel like I like the notion that I'm escaping into this world that is like completely constructed and never actually happened at all. So even though this had like incredible reviews and was obviously recommended for me, I went in pretty skeptical because I don't think I've read a memoir in a very long time, if ever. Very pleased to say that I was pleasantly surprised. I think this was beautiful. I mean, one of the things I look for most in my writing is just like the actual quality of the prose, and Jones is just a beautiful writer, like has those sentences that seem so simple and convey so much. This memoir is about Jones's childhood and young adulthood as he comes to terms with being a gay man, a gay black man, and you just basically like follow his story, and you follow his story through college and with his mother, and just the beats of his life and the important moments and everything he goes through. I think one of the reasons people read at all is to just understand other people's experiences, and I think what this book does so remarkably well is it like really puts the reader in Jones's shoes, like through all of the good and the bad and the beautiful and the ugly, and it just, you really feel like you're there with him even in these moments that happened like decades ago in his childhood, and you feel like they were so present for Jones as he was writing, and they're so present for you as you're reading, and it's just, it really touched me. I think it's clear in his writing that he's also a poet, like the thing I was mentioning before about how sometimes he's just able to transmit emotions through sentences that don't actually seem that weighty. So there's one moment where his mom is in the hospital and they had to like tear the dress off that she was wearing in order to like be able to help her at the hospital, and he writes, it was the dress she wore whenever she showed up in my dreams. And he's able to say, without saying it explicitly, that he's upset that this dress has been torn off because this is a dress that he like most associates with her. And I think I'm just always impressed. I mean, like, it's one of the things that writers should be able to do, but like I'm still always impressed when writers are able to like tell you the thing exactly they're feeling without having to say it at all. Show don't tell is what I would say if I was a high school English teacher, so that's what I'm gonna say. I think this book shows very well without having to tell. So maybe I'm about to become a memoir person, I don't know. I'm so drawn to fiction just like theoretically, but this really moved me, and I think if you're looking for a good memoir to read, this is one I would recommend. My camera is literally about to die, so welcome to the shortest outro possible. All of these books were good. I'm very surprised and very happy. In the time it took for me to film this video, Kayla put out another TBR video, so go check that out. I am about to get my third set of TBR books, so if you want to see another video like this, I can do that, and be sure to be a little bit more speedy about it. My reading lull is officially over, so you can look out for some more videos soon, because I love reading, and I'm sad when I don't read a lot, so we're gonna read a lot is what we're gonna do the rest of 2020. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.